Hello everybody and welcome to Hideaway Homestead. We're excited to show you today how we took the fat from our meat pigs that we harvested and melted it down, rendered it, they call it, into lard. We're using this lard to fry vegetables and to make pastries and even other things like soap. So follow along with us on this process from fat to lard.
One of the things that we are doing now here on the homestead is rendering our own lard from the pigs. This is a knife and a cutting board I've got set up here, and I'm getting ready to cut up this lard in this bucket right here. This is called the leaf lard from the pig. I'll uncover it so you can see it. This is the leaf lard off the pigs that we just did. This is actually one, we butchered 2 pigs, but this is the leaf lard from one of them. This is the purest lard and fat, if you will, that comes from the pig. And it comes from the inside of the rib cage on either side of the pig. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut this up into pieces, and then we'll put it into a crock pot and melt it down, and then we'll have that lard. It'll eventually will solidify if you put it in a jar and put it in the refrigerator, which is what we usually do with it. And then you can use it to season green beans, and you can also cook with it, they say. And so anyway, that's what we're doing today, so I will show you what we're doing. So let's get started. Alright, so what I'm going to do is just going to show you briefly what we're doing here. This piece here has a little bit of red stuff in here, probably some blood and maybe some other parts or whatever, and it feels like it's a little bit dried out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut that off and take that out of there. We could probably use this part that I'm cutting off in with the other fat that we're going to be rendering later on. But for now, I don't really want to have too much of that in there, so I'm just going to cut that off of there and set that aside. And then I'll take this little piece right here out also. It looks like it's just dried out a little bit. And like I say, we can use that in the other stuff that we're going to render. We render all the fat from the pigs when we do them. What I'll usually do is cut these pieces sort of small, because they will cook down faster the smaller they are, obviously. And the other thing is that you want to remember when you do this, you want to try to keep this stuff as cold as you can. This has actually been sitting here for a few minutes, and so it's starting to get soft again. So the colder it is, the easier it is to cut up, and the more it will stay together. And like I said, this has been sitting out for a little bit longer than I wanted it to, and so it is starting to soften up. It's still pretty easy to cut. I mean, it's not hard to cut or anything. It's just that you can see it sticks to the knife a little bit more when it's not quite so cold. So what I'm going to do is just keep cutting this up, and when I get a good pile of this, then I will put it into the crock pot, and we'll start melting this down. I was going to show you also while I'm here, this is a big piece. This is almost a whole piece right here that came off of one side of the pig. And this is what it looks like when you first take it off. It's a real big long piece, and it's usually pretty wide and pretty thick. And this is what it looks like when you first start out with it. And then, of course, you got the smaller pieces, too, that came off of there. Anyway, so I'm going to keep cutting this up, and it looks like I've got a little bit more meat right here on this edge here that I'm going to have to cut off and take out. You want to take off as much of that meat as you can when you're doing this, so that it doesn't get mixed in with the lard. You want to try to keep this lard as pure as you can. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I will continue cutting this, and then we'll be back in just a minute, and we'll show you the next step. Alright, I got the fat cut up, some of it. This is not all of it. Could only get about half of it in this crock pot. What we've done is we put just a little bit of water in the bottom of the crock pot just to keep the fat from sticking to the bottom. I don't know, maybe half an inch of water or something, just enough to cover the bottom. And then we pile all this in there and we'll just let it simmer and cook. I've got this set on a low setting, and I can always come back and turn it up if I need to, and it will just sit here and cook. And you can come by once in a while with a spoon or something and stir it and turn it over just to see how it's doing. But it will just eventually turn into mostly a liquid, and then you'll have it ready to go. So this is, like I said, this is half of the batch that we've got. I've got more that I have to do, but it wouldn't all fit into the crock pot, and so I will do the other half later. So, got this in the pot, got it turned to low, put my lid on, and just let it sit here and simmer. And then we'll check it periodically and see how it's going. Alright, we're getting ready to jar up some of this, and we're moving it from the crock pot into these jars. What Carol's doing is she's putting it in this strainer that we've got in the top of this. It's actually a cheesecloth, I think is what that is. And it seeps down through that cheesecloth and into the jar. And then we end up with a clear liquid inside the jar.
This one's already full.
Yeah, this one here is full. Let's see it, sort of. Yeah, there you go. You can see that
It's
clear.
very hot still.
It's very hot. Yeah, we can't pick it up yet because it's still very hot. Okay, so anyway, so we will just continue with this process until we
I think
get
this
the
half
milk
batch will probably get us 3 quarts of leaf lard, which would be excellent.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot. That's good. Okay, so we'll continue on with this process.
As soon as this drains down, I'll pull those chunks out and we'll put them back in to render down further. We ended up with 16 quart jars of lard. About 6 of them were the leaf lard for baking and pastries. We've started using this rendered lard to cook our vegetables. It is so yummy. And this first batch we did with eggplant. Another very different thing that we did with some of our lard was to make a batch of lard soap. This batch was scented with lavender fragrance. You can find the video of how we made this soap in our video list. Watch it.
Thanks for watching today on how to render lard. Leave us comments in the comments section. Tell us how you use your lard to make things out of it. Thanks for joining us today on Hideaway Homestead.